Hey there. This is Dan, and you're watching the Salty Sea, and I'm coming today with really exciting news because we have gotten sneak peek over this weekend, starting on Thursday when we got our first look at some really revolutionary things coming in Bladeborn as far as the budget version of the game, how to play the game for cheap, and then also this incredible Red Harvest trailer. So I'm going to start with the newest exciting thing first, and then jump into sort of the deep dive of some of the other stuff we got. So the first thing is the Red Harvest trailer, and let's just take a look at it on the website. All right, I want to start by just jumping into the actual post they did after the Gencon reveal here. So this is on the Warhammer community site. They started off with just a little picture here to remind us of, the very first box set that introduced everyone to the game. And then the first thing we get right after they just mention what the game's about is this teaser trailer. Real short, just 45 seconds, starting off in this sort of uh, underground dungeon room with a web to sort of pique your attention, little ditty here. They really focus on this eight-pointed sun that's on the door. I think that's going to be important. I think that has important implications for where the spiders are from. Um, and then they mentioned the Varangard here, which I think is also important. They're really important figures in Slaves to Darkness. You don't just mention the Vanguard casually. Also, we're clearly underground. There's lava. There's sort of industry going on. Um, they could still be in Catacombs. I know a lot of people have mentioned that they think Catacombs is the more balanced version of the game. A lot of really interesting little tidbits to overanalyze in this trailer. Okay, so there are a ton of different options for what that could have been, right? So one of the first guesses that jumps to mind is going to be Goblin Spider Riders, which could be really exciting because those are pretty old sculpts and in need of a little refresh. I actually think that the giant spider kind of still holds up, but the little guys riding spiders don't really. So if we saw sort of an equivalent for the Canite Shadow Stalkers, but Spider Riders, I think that could be amazing for the game. The only thing is, if it's Spider Riders, why focus in on that eight-pointed sun, right? It could be a completely new spider-themed warband that's chaos related. Although it does, the trailer mentioning the Varanspire, it actually sounded from the ditty that the Varanspire end up winning the confrontation, but I'm sure they were just trying to set something up and just writing in haste. Um, the fact that it's going to be Varangard versus whatever these spiders are does lend credence to the fact that it could be sort of destruction versus chaos, especially with, this game, Warcry, being always so chaos focused, but then the current edition of AOS being sort of in the realm of beasts. I think that would be a really good compromise, but between those two things going on in the universe here. I do know, so we didn't get any shots of models there, and I think that's okay, right? Because you don't make a trailer like this unless it's something big. It's got to be at least a new starter box, something like that. And if you look at the Kill Team timeline, um, we've definitely deviated from it here, though there are still some clues, right? So Kill Team gave us the Pariah Nexus in the spring before they revamped the whole game in the summer. Um, a little rough. Hoping you can still play your Pariah Nexus crews against each other easily with the new rules. But we could be seeing something like that. I still think a new edition for Warcry is likely in summer of 2022. That's not me saying I think we need one. I think the game, at least rules-wise, is in a really great place. But I do think we need kind of a hype refresh for the game, and that'll definitely be coming. And the way GW does that is with new additions. So as far as this box, it's going to be really different from Kill Team Pariah Nexus because Pariah Nexus was a rehash of Indomitus, basically. It was Indomitus for Kill Team. It was a little hasty, to be honest. It wasn't quite as carefully considered as I think you would have wanted if you were a Kill Team fan. Um, and I was assuming we would get something like that for Warcry, right? When there was the article saying this is the last ever chosen, and we were seeing, you know, basically hints that there would be more for Warcry to come. I think a lot of people guessed, and myself included, that we'd basically get a box that was rehashing Dominion, but for Warcry, right? So we'd get um, maybe a box of sort of stuff that wasn't in Dominion, but is still with the new Stormcast release, like maybe some Vigilors, some Vanquishers, against maybe some new Cruel Boy stuff, or maybe even just more old Cruel Boy stuff. Who knows? But this is showing we're on a totally different timeline, which is great. Great to see. Whether these are Chaos Spiders or Goblin Spider Riders, either one is exciting. We are in a cave here, and goblins love caves, so that could certainly be sort of another hint. Um, Either way, I'm just really pumped for this, really interested in following this story as it develops. All right, and so if you haven't heard, we have even more news than just the Red Harvest teaser. And that is with this little thing called Bladeborn, which GW has been teasing Bladeborn for, oh my God, I think the first hints we got about it were January of this year. It's been ages. But finally, the box just went on sale in Germany, only Germany. Um, but the exciting thing is, it ships with Warcry rules for 6 Warhammer Underworlds warbands. And, it's like a whole booklet. It even tells you, what you can do with matched play, narrative play, etc. And it's got the rules, abilities, stats, everything for Kagra's Ravagers, which are the Chaos Warrior warband, Godsworn Hunt, which are the sort of Marauders warband, Grashrax Despoilers, that's Beasts of Chaos, Dread Pageant is Slanesh Mortals, Eyes of the Nine, which is a bit of everything Tzeentch, but is rune marked to only be compatible with Tzeentch Mortals, and Garruk's Reavers, which are sort of the Blood Reaver Khorne unit. Um, Now, these are all in German, so the translations are sort of just coming out as I'm recording this. The translations for the abilities have only been out for, uh, maybe 2 minutes. Um, so not 100% reliability on them, but really exciting. And we do have the full guideline on, um, what is going on with how you're allowed to play them, which is incredibly exciting. So let's first start off with list building. Um, Now, all Underworld's fighters are going to count as unique, not just the leader, just every single person in the roster is unique. So you can only take one, which I think is really good. Um, So then in faction, you can play any combination of them. You can just add them to your warband. Take all of them, take one or two of them, anything goes there. Out of faction, you're going to be able to take the leaders as an ally, only in Grand Alliance. So all of these are chaos, if you didn't notice. Um, these are all chaos. So any chaos force can take the leader of one of these warbands as an ally, and then if you take the leader as an ally, you get to bring in one or all of the members of the warband, which is really exciting, and it's going to let people build really fluffy narrative lists without also making it so that certain fighters are just auto includes for everybody. Also, what's really amazing here is this means that any two Underworld's Chaos warbands can combine to be a full Warcry warband. And what I mean by that is all of these come out to be around 600 points in Warcry. Now they all have the rune mark of a given faction that's already in the game. So you just, if you get one, you're in that faction, and then you can ally in the leader of another one, or if you're in Slaves to Darkness, you have two already. Or so you just ally in the leader of another one and ally in as many as you want of that warband. And so you can just combine any two of these chaos factions, these 6 here that we have a look at, and just all of a sudden you have a Warcry warband. So it's a completely different way to get into the game, and really budget friendly. I am going to be remaking my Chaos starter lists video because I think that this changes it so much. I'm also, I think, going to do um, some mini guides to some of the Chaos factions that are most affected by this. And I think the highlight here is probably the Dread Pageant. So all 4 of the models or the fighters in the Dread Pageant are kind of upgrades for Slanesh. Vasilak is a little better than an Ego Pomp, um, which is one of your leaders, but he just costs 5 more points. That's it. And you get quite a bit. You get extra damage, you get extra survivability, the same kind of movement with the 2-inch range, tons of flexibility with him. Glissette is really undercost. She's like best in class for what she's doing at 105 points. Um, some of the she reminds me of some of the Lumineth Blade Lord stuff that came out with the Everchosen article that people at first thought that might be a little OP. It turns out that it's just strong. That's going to be the same as Glissette, but Slaanesh doesn't have anything like her. Um, which just I think makes her, an auto include for that faction. Um, then Slake Slash. Now, Fiend Bloods are already really good. They're the one really good unit in Slaanesh Mortals right now. But Slake Slash has move 6 and deals 10 damage to cheap like toughness 3 models on average. Um, which is just incredible. He's just like a slightly harder hitting version of a Fiend Blood. Would you take him over a Fiend Blood if you were trying to, play to win so and so? You might not, you might do it. Depends on if you have points left over for your warband, stuff like that. And then Hadzu has more health and double the damage of a normal archer for just 30 points. 30 points more, of course. 80 points for a regular archer. Hadzu doing double the damage for 110 points. Great little upgrade if you've got points in your list for him. Another highlight is Grashrak's Despoilers. Grashrak has a really cool quad ability, and those 65-point minions. I don't know if you would take them over Gore's. Gore's at 55 points, but they do give you a little bit of utility. And if you have 10 points left over in your list, you'd absolutely run them. Now, the quad ability out of Grashrak is really interesting. I'm just going to hop over to the translation. So these are the translations. Many thanks to Dexon on Reddit for supplying these. The quad ability, you get to deal damage, and then on a 2-up, you get to do essentially what the Slaanesh Mirror does, the Contorted Epitome, where you just completely lock it down for the round. Really excellent. Also, 12-inch range on it is actually better than what the Mirror gets to do. So just being able to do it all the way across the board, any time that you actually roll a quad, which is hard to do, only 37% chance on a given time, you do get you just get this incredible threat to point at your enemy. The Godsworn Hunt is also really interesting. Now, unfortunately, Thedra's ability, if you look at her rune mark here, she gets this triple, which is translated to something pretty disappointing, just taking away toughness. But Olo, the archer, gets to take Grawl and give him a whole extra movement attack, or sorry, movement activation. So he already moves 6. So all of a sudden, Grawl can kind of fly across the board really effectively. Now it's only got 6 hit points, so you got to be careful about how you use it. But really exciting, and I think both the 75 pointers and Olo are pretty solid coming out of Godsworn Hunt. Finally, some really cool stuff to look at with Kagra's Ravagers. Kragan and Razak are just pure upgrades over the previously terrible Chaos Warriors. And so the one without the shield is just a very small upgrade, but that's really nice to see since Chaos Warriors were a little disappointing for what they're supposed to be. But Razak, the one with the shield, still I think weaker than the two weapon one, but 25 points cheaper than the current shielded Chaos Warrior for actually another hit point. So really solid there. I still don't think I'd pay anything for the upgrade from 5 toughness to 6 toughness. It's just so rare that it comes up. But it's clear that GW is paying attention here. It's clear that they're listening because the other one was just so wildly overcosted, right? Razak is 145 points, and the previous shielded Chaos Warrior was 170 points. So now you can field Razak and do it with a straight face, whereas before you really couldn't. So this is incredibly exciting. What does it mean? Balance, I think they're clearly looking at here. A lot more love was given where it was needed, right? There's no super cheap fighters. There's no fighters that are kind of changing how you would chaff up in a warband. And the cheapish guys, the 265 pointers out of Grashrak's Despoilers, they're not busted or anything. They're just solid and cheap fighters. Slaanesh Sybarites were probably the weakest of the factions included, they were probably the weakest before this update, and they got the biggest upgrades, right? The Dread Pageant is incredible. Um, there are three warbands that are kind of conspicuous just by not being there. Skaven, who absolutely did not need any upgrades, so not upset about that. And then Nurgle and Maegor's Fiends. Maegor's Fiends are the Chaos Warrior sort of equivalent for Khorne, Blood Warriors. They're the Blood Warrior warband. And then the Nurgle warband, Fecula Flyblown and Co. Nurgle really needed help. Nurgle mortals, especially. Nurgle demons are actually pretty solid. They, I think underrated by the community in general. But Nurgle mortals absolutely need help, and it would have been really cool to see, three new options for them. They could have been just like they could have made them really solid fighters or given them really powerful abilities, and could have really helped give that faction a facelift. Um, don't know though if those will come in the future. I could easily see it just being these six for months and months. I could also easily see full cross compatibility on the horizon. I think it makes a ton of sense to have cross compatibility between Underworlds and Warcry, right? Those Underworlds models are just crying out to be used in every game they can possibly be used in, just because, like the bespoke sculpts, the just uniqueness of each one. I love that they made them all essentially legendary in Warcry, right? So you can bring in one, and then so they're all upgraded versions um, of the stock unit that they look a little bit like. So people who were running their Underworlds warbands. In Warcry as just the regular version of whatever they are, they can absolutely still do that, right? Nobody's going to call you on it if you just show up with your cards and they're just the basic cards. Um, but if you want to kind of leverage the uniqueness, leverage the interesting parts of this Underworlds experiment that GW is doing, you can absolutely do that in Warcry now, which I think is really exciting. I would expect, if I had to place bets, I would expect to see um, more Underworld's warbands with the Tome of Champions. I was holding out for this Gen Con reveal to see if they were going to announce something with that um, along with Gen Con, but they didn't do that, which totally reasonable. So I would expect Tome of Champions at the earliest would be when we'd see any other Underworld's warbands. But this is certainly plenty to chew on, and I'm really excited about what this is going to mean for budget players. Anyone wanting to get into the game cheaply, I'm going to probably do a whole guide on it, on how to do it specifically with these Underworld warbands. So overall, just an incredible amount of stuff for our game coming out this weekend, just from various different sources. Really exciting. It's given me a ton of material I need to work through for the next couple weeks, both in terms of kind of breaking down how you can add the new Underworld's warbands to your crews in Warcry, how you can get into Warcry using only Underworld's warbands. That's going to be incredibly exciting. And I'm also just, waiting breathlessly for more information about Warcry Red Harvest, whatever the heck that's going to mean. So lots to kind of break down and track over the next few months. Really excited about it. Hope you are too. And, until we get more info, may all your rolls be crits.